On a quiet street in San Mateo, California, sits a house surrounded by a world in miniature. The year is 1939. The place, Jack Verducci's backyard railroad.
Jack Verducci started with a simple plan to run a model train around his yard in San Mateo, California. 20 years later, he's created a 3,000 square foot garden railroad on the hillside of his backyard and covering his front lawn. He calls it the Crystal Springs Railroad, and it all began back in 1987.
Well, I was into indoor railroading in the N scale, and one of my trips to the hobby shop, I saw a large-scale engine, and it kind of tweaked my interest, and they said it was for outdoor use, so I went ahead and bought it and started out with a little circle of track on the lawn, and thought it'd be neat to do a railroad based on that engine and cars.
Jack started in the low end of his hilly backyard, creating a forest and logging area, and building his first major structure, the lumber mill, which is steam-powered and has working machinery.
Basically what we're trying to do is depict what a logging and a little short line railroad might have looked like and operated like in the 1930s in this area. We have several little sub-industries, machine shops, furniture stores, wood factories that are customers of the railroad. So we do basically a full operation like a full-blown transportation system.
The lumber mill overlooks the coastal town of Fog Harbor. This is the lowest point on the railroad and considered at sea level. From Fog Harbor, the trains travel up a grade that represents the Pacific Coast Range. The train is actually climbing 5 feet to get to the summit. This steep grade was Jack's biggest challenge.
It was pretty steep, but we had to build a retaining wall to have a place for the train to start out at. Even with the retaining wall in it, we still have to fight a 5% grade.
Dispatcher? Right. Train number 8 is cleared from San Mateo to Fog Harbor. Switch number 8 is reversed. You are clear to proceed.
The railroad is powered by live steam on 650 feet of mainline track. Jack built his layout with track-powered engines, but gradually replaced them with live steamers. He finally disconnected the track power completely 10 years ago. A battery-powered tram operates separately for the mining district in the front yard. Members of Jack's train crew are happy to be working with live steam.
All the senses, the smell, the sound, it's something that electric trains just don't seem to compare for me anymore.
The Crystal Springs Railroad has more than 100 structures. Jack built most of them from scratch in order to get the look he wanted. Some of the buildings have detailed interiors, like this bar, one of Jack's favorite structures on the railroad.
I like my machine shop, and of course a sawmill, and then I have a little bar that I like that's interiorized. The bar is one of the few buildings I take in, because the weather really doesn't do interiors very well. You get bugs in it and everything else. But the structures themselves will do all right outside.
All of the plants on the railroad landscape are real, and there are hundreds of them, from dwarf pines and maple trees to miniature roses, ivy, and moss. Each one carefully chosen and planted with a purpose to fit into the scale of the railroad. Early on, Jack was surprised to find himself enjoying the garden part of garden railroading.
I didn't even like the mowed lawn, so that was kind of an interesting thing, because after getting into it, I realized that the gardening was a lot of fun. It became a challenge to find the right size trees and the ones that looked like big trees in miniature. So I actually enjoy that very much.
Using bonsai techniques, Jack has been trimming these tiny plants for nearly 20 years, shaping them to look like tiny oak trees. His wife, Pauline, also enjoys maintaining the railroad, but she does have one complaint.
This railroad is basically for a lot of men, like loggers and steam engines.
To please his wife and his grandchildren, Jack built a special area to accommodate Jiminy Cricket, Tinker Bell, and a few of their special friends. As expected, it became Pauline's favorite part of the garden.
Basically the Disney part of our garden with the Snow White and Seven Dwarfs, the little trees and sidewalks, and creating the little villages with Pinocchio.
For the record, the dwarfs are fully employed on the railroad, managing the Seven Dwarfs Mining Company. As for Pinocchio, he stays close to home, steering clear of the lumber yard. According to Jack, the ultimate success of his Crystal Springs Railroad depends on 3 basic requirements: real dirt, real plants, and real steam. It also took real talent plus a lot of hard work.
Oh yeah, I enjoy it. It's there's enough challenges there to keep you occupied. I mean, it's almost like a job, keeping everything up. But I still enjoy it.